Greetings, everyone. I'm Arben Skivjani, Deputy Chief Economist at RealPage and one of the hosts of Multifamily Talks, a podcast by RealPage. Today, I'm joined by Lance French, RealPage's Chief Information Officer. He brings over 25 years of experience that includes leading global, high-performing teams focused on strategy, execution, and delivery of customer value. His expertise is in digital transformation, innovative architecture, product leadership, and change management. In this episode, we will discuss the role of AI in transforming multifamily operations, such as how AI enhances resident experience and boosts efficiency of property management. Among many other things, we also talked about Lumina AI platform, which enables a new paradigm for managing property operations with engagement, smarter systems of intelligence and management. I hope you find our discussion insightful. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. While the late 1700s and early 1800s were characterized by the Industrial Revolution, today we're witnessing another revolution, the widespread adaptation or application of AI, artificial intelligence. Now, it wouldn't be an overstatement to say that today, artificial intelligence touches pretty much every aspect of our lives as well as businesses. And speaking of businesses, today, we will deep dive into the role of AI in transforming multifamily operations. And to talk about it, who else better than our CIO, RealPage's CIO, Mr. Lance French, who is an expert in integrating cutting-edge technologies in multifamily industry. Thank you very much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me, Arben.
Well, I have to admit that up until this point, all of my guests have been online. So it's a true privilege to have you here live in our RealPage studios here at our headquarters. Now, considering the topic of discussion today, what can we do to convince our audience that you are the real Lance French and not just an AI-generated version of you?
Well, thank you. Interesting starting question, Arben. I would say first, it's great to be here in person and to have this dialogue. It's really topics that are near and dear to my heart, which is property technology and AI. Interesting question on how do you tell if it's real? Because deep fakes are all over the internet, whether I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, just seeing a video on YouTube. One of the things you can watch for is hair perfectly in place, which you can see mine is not. I have some flyaway hairs. But on a deep fake, typically, you will see that very well presented. The other thing to look for is perfect faces. So no wrinkles. So if I smile, you can certainly see the crow's feet coming from my eyes. But then, there's also language. And so oftentimes you'll see a foreign language shown and the lips won't quite match. So you will see mine match today. But if you're in doubt still, and I hope you're not, I will be at Real World, our conference later in the year, and you can see me live and ask questions. But please trust me, I am real.
Well, now that we are convinced that you are indeed Lance, could you share something about yourself and give us sort of a snapshot of your expertise in AI and technology, especially within our industry, which is pretty big, probably one of the biggest out there?
Sure. And I'm proud to live in Texas. So I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, very close to Austin and University of Texas, where a lot of technology lives. But I've been in high tech for 25 plus years. First started in transportation, worked for BNSF Railway. And it was really a learning experience in my first exposure to AI, where sensor data was being used to protect safety, to predict issues in railway beds, structures like bridges. But it was also being used for predictive algorithms. So that really sparked my interest. I then moved to high-tech SaaS about 6 years ago for Salesforce based out of San Francisco. And I had the opportunity to be exposed to very innovative companies like Tableau, who was acquired by Salesforce, like Datorama, an AI data-based company that helped to drive Einstein, the AI platform for Salesforce. And my interest went up even more as we developed automation and AI internally, but also for our customers. I happened to be with Salesforce during the pandemic. And so their big conference, Dreamforce, 70,000 plus people in San Francisco, suddenly went virtual. And so to do that for millions of people with technology, it was just an amazing experience in seeing people come together. And then most recently with RealPage. What brought me to RealPage is they are not only a leader in property technology and have been for 20 plus years, but innovating with AI, things like machine learning, traditional AI methods. And now we're at the forefront of implementing technology on our new platform, Lumina, and bringing AI to the marketplace and our customers in a different and responsible way.
I mean, can you imagine how it would have been if we had AI 20, 30 years ago? It probably would be a totally different world.
Yes.
Well, it's fascinating to hear about the paths that have led you to where you are today, an extremely successful person. So could you share a bit more about your journey, the high-tech SaaS industry, and what roles have you played in shaping your company's technology strategies? And by your companies, I mean the companies where you work with
Yes.
and for. And I'm curious to know, who were some of the mentors who influenced you along the way? I'm sure you've had some.
Sure. And as I mentioned, 6 years in high-tech SaaS. And I've had an opportunity in every role to either set technology strategy or heavily influence it. And really what I learned through that is categorizing work into 3 buckets. So one, make sure your systems are working, particularly where you have products for your customers. The price of entry is, are they secure? Are you securing your data, your customers' data? Are they performing well? Are they available? So that has to be the highest priority. But then we often get stuck in this category of, well, how do I improve the status quo? And certainly we want to improve. We always do. But transformation has to be somewhere in that mix. And that's really what we're doing at RealPage, is saying, yes, we're going to run and we're going to protect our products and our customers. Yes, we're going to improve our environment, but how do you do something different? How do you bring value differently? And that's where AI comes into play. And that's really what we're doing. So setting a strategy that allows for time and prioritizes transformation and innovation. So that's been the role that I've been able to influence both at Salesforce as well as now here at RealPage. My mentors, there have been so many, Arben, but 2 come to mind. Joanne Alzofsky was an executive vice president at Salesforce and worked with her for many years. What I learned was to make sure that you're innovating, you're transforming, but you're empowering and bringing your people along with you. And so when you look at innovation at RealPage, you see that our employees are part of that journey. They're innovating. They feel empowered to innovate in a responsible way. The second person that I really learned from was the co-president at Salesforce, Brett Taylor. Some of you will remember him as the creator of the like button on Facebook when he was there. But he brought to his teams this notion that we should think about services and products we're building as not just providing a capability, but they have a job to be done. And that job to be done is value. It's business outcome. And so what that kind of changed my entire mindset to say, we're not building technology for the sake of building technology. What is the experience that we're building? How are we trying to change and transform and innovate, and putting that focus there as a success factor as opposed to just simply finishing a task? He recommended an amazing book called Competing Against Luck that talks about this jobs to be done theory. And it's really changed my perspective on how we develop internally.
How many times have you read that book?
3. But I often summarize with AI. Let me just say that. What are the key points? But yes, I have read it 3 times, and I've recommended it multiple times.
All right, well, we'll talk more about it when it comes to recommended book. Okay. Well, so it has become sort of a tradition, at least when I host these episodes, that the host, me, and the guest shares a joke about our industry, right? Now I know what you're thinking. I mean, how on earth can an economist, share a joke? But I'm going to try very hard to surprise you. Okay. So I'll share a joke, and then if you would like, you can share one.
Great.
Too. All right. So
good.
Here I go. So a mathematician, a statistician, and an economist apply for the same job. So the interviewer first calls in the mathematician and asks a simple question: what is 2 plus 2? And the mathematician says, well, 2 plus 2 is 4. So the interviewer asks, 4 exactly? Mathematician says, yeah, 4 exactly. So then the interviewer calls in the statistician, asks exactly the same question, what is 2 plus 2? And the statistician says, well, 2 plus 2 on average is 4, give or take a margin of error of 0.1. Finally, the interviewer calls in the economist and asks the same question, what is 2 plus 2? So the economist gets up, closes the door, leans in, and whispers, what do you want it to be?
I love that, Arben. And it's always nice to look at your profession and have some fun and humor. So thank you for sharing that. Well, in that light, and given this discussion, I think I will lean on AI to help me with
smart.
a joke.
All right.
So I'm going to leverage Siri. Hey, Siri, tell me a joke about IT people.
Sure. Will I understand it? Probably not.
Okay, that's kind of interesting because we as IT people often speak language that isn't understandable. But thank you, Siri, for giving us that joke.
All right, I like that. All right, so now that we have shared some laughs, let's turn to some, let's say, pressing questions, right? And that's one of the reasons why we're here today. So AI seems to be a game changer in many industries, including ours. So how do you see AI enhancing the resident experience and boosting the efficiency of property management? And broadly speaking, how have technological changes, especially I would say in the past 3 to 5 years, changed the landscape or affected the landscape?
You bet. And, it's interesting. And I mentioned earlier that RealPage has been a leader in AI for 20 plus years. And, it was the more traditional notions of AI, like machine learning, data science driven by predictive models. Generative AI has changed what we do and how we do it, really democratized AI, but very specific to the resident experience. Our view is firstly to make sure that our approach to AI is responsible. So we have a platform we call Lumina, and we're very interested in protecting our data and then using that data in ways that enhances the resident experience. So the example I'll give is really the life cycle of a resident looking for a home, and they're both an applicant all the way through to they're moving in. So it's our desire to better understand and make that flow more effective using AI methods. So we can predict what's going to happen, what needs to happen in the next step. So think about it in terms of when I apply, we can make sure that the applicant is fairly vetted. We can look at their identity. We can make sure that that lease is approved. We can then make sure that the right apartment is matched up to them for their needs. Talk about things like the community, what makes it so positive with different services that are offering. And then as they're moving in, bring services that are of value. Oh, you need to set up cable, you need additional services, and really thinking about that end to end in a seamless experience. But we've also taken that a step further. So if I'm a resident using our products, we're now using AI to provide better answers to questions that they may have. So how do I change my password? How do I change an amenity that I'm looking for in an apartment? And we use now our AI chatbots to provide meaningful information that's accurate, that quickly fits the need. Now, on the property management side of the house, some of these same AI models are driving value and efficiency. So one of the big factors we're hearing from our customers is fraud. And fraud is costing the industry and property management companies millions of dollars. It's rampant. And you can go out on Google, you can see it on TikTok, identities for sale, driver's license for sale. And so we've focused hard on how do we protect against that? So recently we developed an identity verification system that uses various modes of AI to verify the individual is who they say they are. And that's everything from understanding biometrics and how they match to a driver's license to other abilities across the industry. Then we have the ability to verify income in different ways than we have in the past, because it's easy to have a fraudulent income statement, W-2, check that you can show. So now we can verify that. And what we're seeing is NSFs starting to go down. So not sufficient funds to cover a check. We're beginning to see fraud in the companies that are leveraging these technologies. They're not seeing the kinds of issues.
Oh, that's fantastic for the entire industry. Well, let's talk about Lumina for a moment. And I want to be honest. I work for this company. I've heard about Lumina, but I don't know much about it. So could you explain the systems it comprises and how they integrate from back office to the resident experience? And what makes your approach, in this case, RealPage's approach, with tools like ClickPay and Gen AI chatbot stand out in the industry?
Sure. And Lumina is our new data and AI platform. And, we've realized with all of these new capabilities and democratizing AI and the ability to quickly stand up models that we wanted to take a different approach than many of our competitors and others in the industry, which is one, we're going to focus on the data. And so we've designed and built a modern data lakehouse. Now that sounds like a fancy term, but it's really a modern platform that allows us to consume data from our systems, to have it in various stages. So from raw data to curated data, where we can understand different objects and how that data fits into our systems, to even more summarized data that has findings. It sits on this platform that allows us to govern, make sure that we understand where there's PII, personally identifiable data, so we can protect it and encrypt it according to regulatory compliance. This new platform is allowing us to look across all of the RealPage products and consistently treat our data and protect it and secure it. So think of it as this huge data platform where you have insights and you can count on the reliability and the quality of the data. Now, once that platform is there, we're building our AI on top of it. And the reason we're doing it as a platform, again, is to maintain that we're compliant with regulations, make sure that we're protecting our customers' data, and then also protecting the data from others, so bad actors outside of RealPage. Now, our philosophy on AI really fits into three categories. We're building systems that drive management. So think of them as systems of management. This is where you get efficiency. You're driving automation. So in the past, you might have transactional systems where I click different steps through and I complete a transaction. Well, we want that to be smarter. So now we can say, look, here are the steps that need to be completed. Would you like to take those steps? And then we can automate that and create a more efficient environment. So it's both bringing information in, it's a combination of AI and automation.
Are we the only ones doing that in our industry? I know we're not here to talk about others, but just asking.
Very fair, because AI, you hear it all over, and people will say, well, I'm building AI models. But the question is, how are you doing it? And are you doing it in a way that's really driving the outcome in a scalable and compliant and secure way? And that's where we differentiate ourselves, because we aren't just going out and building one-off solutions and then going to market and saying, look, here's what we've done. Instead, it's a very roadmap-driven and business outcome-driven approach. Now, the second set of systems we're building is engagement. So we talked about the resident. So how do you experience RealPage products? Look, I go into my portal. I need to make a payment. Or I go in and I need to ask for a work order to be completed. We want that to be a seamless experience. And we rolled out one of our models in ClickPay, which is a payment platform that we use. And 80% of the residents that logged in, their issues were resolved. And prior to the bot, it would have been gone to an agent who would answer a question. You may have a delay. So now it's a much better experience and it's a more timely response. So systems of engagement. It goes back to that notion of I'm moving in, I'm an applicant, I'm living. I mean, the whole notion is how do we get the right information to the right people in a way that makes sense? Now, the third thing that we're doing, and this is all on Lumina, is systems of intelligence. And that's where we talk about things like income verification. That's where we talk about things like identity verification. We start looking at property management companies that are considering investing in a property. Well, what should be the value of that property? So that's where systems are getting smarter over time. And our approach and what makes us different is that, again, these aren't one-off solutions. These are well-trained models. They're well-architected models that control the tone, they control the content, and we put heavy guardrails around them to make sure that the quality is there. So Lumina is one, data, and two, an AI-driven platform.
So we didn't just use ChatGPT to generate the code, did we?
Well, it's a great comment because ChatGPT in and of itself is phenomenal. And if you look at the new version 4.0, it's amazing. But what we don't do is use it in an open environment. Instead, we use it in a protected tenant. So if you come into a ChatGPT model at RealPage, you can rest assured it's well trained. Things that you hear in the marketplace like hallucinations or, the model's doing something they shouldn't do or making commitments on behalf of a company. That's not the types of model we're building. You'll see those in startups oftentimes. You'll see those when people are just simply trying to get out and do something fast. RealPage is coming at this from an enterprise and with partners that are helping us to produce in the way we are.
Can you talk a little bit more about the partners?
You bet. Our view of AI partners is that we want to be vendor agnostic, cloud agnostic. But with that being said, we're working with companies like Google to make sure that our standards are at the highest level. We're working with companies like Microsoft to help us train our models to make sure that tone and guardrails are set. Working with companies like AWS, Palo Alto Networks, and OneTrust. And their involvement, which is interesting, is more around making sure we are compliant with state, federal, international regulations, both today, but then also trying to predict what will be here in the next 12 months. We're not waiting. We want to be ahead of the curve for our customers.
That's fascinating. Thanks for sharing. Well, let's move to another topic, which I know it's on everybody's mind, the effect of AI on employment. Morgan Stanley recently did a research on this topic, and they found out that within the next 3 years, so by 2027, over 44% of all occupations will be affected by AI. And according to them, that's about $4.1 trillion. That's with T, $1 trillion of associated labor costs. So, do you foresee AI eliminating jobs, or do you think it's more about transforming roles? I know our roles will transform, no doubt about it.
Well, certainly it's changing things quickly. It's interesting to see how AI is impacting how programs are coded. It's interesting to see how tasks are being automated. Insights are now available. But our view is that it's not eliminating jobs or affecting people and taking them out of jobs, but instead it's supplementing people and making them smarter, giving them more insights they may not have had prior. So instead of becoming, yes, and I am as well, because instead of doing the mundane tasks, now what we see is, the roles are going to elevate. So now I become an analyst, for example, that is looking at exceptions and understanding trends and dealing with those as opposed to dealing with a bulk of transactions. So I go back to, the management, systems of engagement, systems of intelligence. Each of those will empower employees to be more effective in their roles. Now, will there be some roles that are eliminated and new ones created? Absolutely. But there's an opportunity for companies to partner with large enterprise scale providers of high-tech SaaS like RealPage to really make a difference and set that path and communicate it in a way that it's positive. So there's a lot of fear around AI, and it shouldn't be there because it's an amazing technology. Used correctly, used responsibly, it can do wonderful things for our industry and for our residents.
So I can go home and tell my wife that I don't have to be worried about my job?
No, I do not believe, but, generative AI may help you with scripting.
Absolutely.
It may help you with insights. So those are just some good examples. But the notion that, someone that is having a podcast or a conversation, I don't see Gen AI, deep fake, having this conversation.
I totally agree. It's something, the way I see it, something that is going to help us be better,
yes.
Get better. Will it eliminate some jobs? Maybe. But overall it will make us better,
Yes,
smarter.
absolutely.
All right, so switching gears a bit here, data is clearly at the heart of AI. So how do you manage data collection and analysis to fuel AI initiatives? And what challenges do you face around data quality, privacy, and security? All three big things.
Well, Arben, it's an important question, and I think it's one that we, as an industry and in technology, are not asking and answering enough.
Now you make me feel real smart.
So this is really important because a lot of these models, for example, ChatGPT, are easy to stand up, and they're in open forums, consuming data that's readily available. And the models are only as good as the data that feeds them.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. And so it's important to focus on quality. And we're doing that through our platform, Lumina, which is a modern data lake house architecture. And as part of that, there are a number of governance tools and services that are available that look at the lineage of your data. They look at the quality and classification of your data. They help you to make decisions around what may need to be encrypted, what may need to be de-identified, and then that you can tie back to regulations to make sure that you're compliant. But it takes a lot of work, and there aren't a lot of people spending enough time on the data. That's clearly our first priority, is quality of that data. Now, the second question is, how do you protect the information? The world has changed in terms of InfoSec and cyber security. So at RealPage, we've invested over $10 million in the last 2 years up-leveling our security profile. Now, that's not to say we weren't compliant in the past or we didn't have adequate security, but we really wanted to change that paradigm where we could use more AI concepts around detecting patterns or trends or bad actors. We also invested in tools that help us better understand our data from an InfoSec perspective. So tying that with a regulatory compliance and then also layering on top of that InfoSec that better protects that information. Now, the third part of this is compliance. And this is a tough one because data privacy is evolving rapidly. And we see it becoming more stringent over time, whether that's in the US or internationally. Regulations around AI, we have some today, but we know that's evolving as government bodies examine, special interest groups examine the ramifications of AI in use. So we know we're not experts in that space. So we're relying on others. I mentioned earlier OneTrust. OneTrust is the partner that we really look to make sure we understand where we sit today related to compliance and where we're heading. We also have internal, external legal counsel to understand any legal ramifications, and then testing. I mean, you have to consistently test to make sure that these models stay in compliance, stay secure, and that we can have reliance on the quality.
Excellent answer. So you'd agree with me that adopting new technologies comes with many hurdles.
Yes.
Right. You've been there many times before. So what are some of the main barriers to AI transformation or adoption you have seen in multifamily organization, probably not in just in our industry, but in other industries where you have worked, and how can they be addressed?
Well, in the multifamily industry, and you could apply this to others as well, but it's developing models that really are specific to property management. So understand the terms, understand the workflows, understands what is important to an applicant or to a resident. And that could be whether that is a foreign language or a different language. It could be simple things like, does a term mean something specific in property versus elsewhere? So I think that's a big challenge. And I've heard this from multiple customers is there a property management model that I can get my hands on? And frankly, that's what we're developing. So it understands terminology. It understands workflow. And so on the Lumina platform, you have catalogs that help with a data dictionary and metadata that drives to multifamily and drives to our industry. So I think that's challenge one. The second challenge is, how do we address some of the more complex topics in multifamily. So for example, on the affordable or tax credit front, there are a lot of rules and compliance that we need to be concerned with. So we've been actively working on how can we leverage AI to assist, both in terms of flows of information, compliance of data, regulations, and making sure that there isn't inappropriate bias that's being introduced. I think those are two challenges. So specific to our industry, and then some of the more complex areas that frankly we need to tackle, and we're committed to doing that.
Well, you said that AI and technologies are evolving so rapidly. So, and having said that, governance and regulations are crucial, right? So how are you keeping up with all these changes, and especially with development of Gen AI, and how do you incorporate frameworks like OneTrust to navigate these regulations?
Yeah, well, it's really stepping back and taking the time to set a baseline. And it's hard to do because everybody wants to move really fast. But it's simple things like, do I have a clear policy that says this is how we're going to use as a company AI internally, and this is how we're going to use AI in our products. And that's where frameworks like what OneTrust offers and many others that we've been consulting with that say, look, you have to do that first. Then secondly, do you have steering committees or frameworks that allow you to prioritize and make sure that you're working on the highest quality items, meaning these are the ones that drive value for our customers. So there's a lot of listening. And then it's also into how these solutions are architected, how they're tested for all of the conditions we talked about, tone, guardrails, hallucinations, which are common just in large language models in general, but they can be controlled properly with time and testing. And so, it's a difficult challenge. I think it's a big investment that you have to go through to have this structure in place, and then relying on these others to help you see a little bit into the future. But you also have to invest. I mean, we've invested tens of millions of dollars into just the foundation before you start talking about, hey, we're rolling all of this out and making it available.
So this is just the beginning of investing in these things.
Absolutely, and we're committed.
So, you talked about models hallucinating. So how do we train these systems to avoid biases and ensure the data they generate is accurate and fair?
Yeah. Rigorous testing. I keep going back to testing, but, when testing models of AI, clearly, if you go back to the origination, there's some data, somebody has a hypothesis that if we can perform this function, you'll get value. That experiment is performed and you validate the hypothesis. And let's say that answer is yes. Okay, well, I can go test against that over and over again in a limited capacity and validate that I have the right answer. But when you think about something going to production and being available in a product that represents RealPage and our customers, now you're talking about doing regression testing, meaning any change that occurs over the life of this product goes through a full test. You talk about doing negative testing. So now you're going all the way back to say, well, what if I try some alternative? What result will it produce? You also have to do tests on your data. And so almost trying to produce either a bias, an inappropriate tone, something that should not be there. And the robustness of that test harness is what gives you confidence that ultimately you're going to get the result. It's interesting to hear some of the horror stories that are out there, where people launch
Please share some
bots
of that.
quickly, and, it's a customer service company, and somebody's chatting with a bot and says, hey, I'd really like to have a refund on my entire trip. And the bot says, well, sure, of course I'll give you that. Okay, well, now you have an agent of the company that has committed to provide a refund. And this particular bot, just continued on and was making other commitments. And so it's really, how do you think about that experience end to end? The other thing we wanted to do was make sure that we were protected, not just in what we understood, but we brought, for example, Microsoft in, and we asked them to test our models and bring their tools up against it for tone, for potential hallucination, or could you create one? And that also gives us confidence because you have some of the biggest names in AI partnering with RealPage to produce these results. And so with that, I would say it matters who you show up with to market.
I mean, hearing you say these, it just makes me even more proud to be part of this great company. Just
Yes.
fascinating. Well, as we look towards the future, what AI trends should professionals in not just in multifamily industry, but in every industry that is touched by AI be prepared for? And can you tell us a bit more about how Lumina protects customer data while providing value? I know you touched
Yep.
on it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at the trends. And, you know, I obviously listen and read and have heard from some of the experts around what we should expect. But it's clear to me that automation is going to continue to be driven by AI. And so I think that could be everything from tasks that we perform to analysis to additional insights. And I think you said it well earlier that it's not replacing people or jobs, it's supplementing. And if we have that mindset as we go in, I think clearly we can say, all right, this is something that we can lever internally. And that's sort of at the individual level. If you think about across companies and functions, there's a great video that came out on ChatGPT 4.0. And it talks about a cohort of agents supporting agents. So if you think about AI models and the ability to work together with specific jobs, AI models and the ability to work together with specific jobs. So think of a customer service agent. So, you know, let's say one of our residents calls in and says, hey, you know, I'm having issues with topic A. Well, we could have a voice agent that is very conversational, that is easy to talk to, easy to understand, that asks a question. Well, tell me a little bit more about what you're experiencing. At the same time, AI engines are running to analyze who this person is, have they called before, how can we help them, how can we be most effective. And they tell us they're having an issue with a particular product. Well, that agent hands off to another AI agent that's a specialist in that product, and they answer the question. But then there's another question. Well, hey, I have another question. Let me ask you. That agent hands off to another agent. So think of it as a cohort of agents with jobs that they're doing and managing. Now, that concept could be taken across managing a property. It could be across a workflow end to end, like a resident experience. That could be from an investor's standpoint of buying a property. You know, and that could just be in our individual lives as well. I want to perform a function. Well, I could have agents that are assisting me in that journey. So, you know, that's sort of where I see this heading. And we're working to be on the forefront of that by developing these individual models that eventually come together on the Lumina platform to give more value. And that's really where the protection and value comes from Lumina, because if you extend beyond where we are today, what's going to drive success? Data? Well, we're all focused on data, quality of data, protecting your data, being compliant with the data. The value comes from various models. And Lumina isn't restricted to one model. It isn't restricted to one vendor or one approach. So as models evolve, they will continue to consume, and Lumina will be the feeder. And that's where we see the value.
Well, Lance, considering what you just said, I think this is the perfect moment to talk about the biggest event that we at RealPage host, Real World Conference. And if I'm not mistaken, the next one will be this July, around the 13th of, this August, around
Yes.
the 13th of August. So what can we expect at the upcoming conference, and any groundbreaking AI innovations that might steal the show?
Well, I can tell you this is our first ever data, IT, and InfoSec track at Real World. So when I say track, I mean we have 7 sessions that are all focused around those topics. So IT professionals, folks are interested in better leveraging RealPage, better leveraging information. It's a great place to come and learn, to network, and work together. So we also have our partners coming to present with us. So you get to hear not only from RealPage, but experts in the topics. So we really are looking forward to that. Now, I've been warned against giving too much about teasers in Real World, but I will say, yes, we will have some innovative things rolled out. We will have an AI show and tell where you can actually get your hands on products. We will open the hood on how we develop and manage AI. and we'll talk about data. We'll talk about information security. So lots of innovation on deck.
I don't intend for you and I to lose our jobs today by spilling the beans and sharing more than we need to. So we'll stop there. So before we wrap up, what advice would you give to property managers and other professionals about adopting AI in their operations?
My advice is, to be open. And I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of fear and apprehension around generative AI, new concepts around AI, regulation that's coming, security, and really pick partners that you have confidence in that can deliver today in a way that we can all feel proud that it's responsible use and delivery of AI. But don't just look at today. Look at where we're going to be in 25, in 26, in 5 years, because the platforms we're building and the processes we're building aren't here just for today. They're here to make our customers successful for their customers over time. And so it matters who you partner with. And we're standing ready to partner and come to our customers where they are. And they're in different places in their journey. I mean, it's very clear. Some are very standoffish from an AI standpoint, but leveraging this concept and watching it grow and grow your business is my recommendation to property managers.
So growing up as a child, did you use AI a lot?
Looking back, I have to say no, because, that was a time before cell phones, before Siri, before Alexa. But, I can see similar concepts now. I wish I had AI. I wish I had the advantages.
So reflecting on your own experiences, what advice would you give to your younger self today?
If I were to look back at myself, say 12, 13 years old, my advice would be listen more. Because by listening, for me, you hear things. And
I hope my daughter is listening to this episode.
And I honestly, this is so hard to hear because at that age, I wouldn't listen because I thought I knew more than I did. But it would be listen and then enjoy the journey. Because at that time, I had no idea the technology advances that were coming. And, the fear sometimes it drives behavior that, you wish it didn't. So, fear of computers, fear of automation. You think about the first rule engines that came out, the first optical character recognition, when scanning and facsimiles went away. Then suddenly we had EDI, electronic data interchange. And now everything is done through Wi-Fi with AI. And so if I reflect on that point to now, it's like, enjoy this, man. You are going on a ride.
Absolutely.
And it only gets better. So that would be my advice.
All right. Excellent advice. So for all tech enthusiasts out there, how can they stay updated and effectively leverage AI technologies? And are there any books or resources that you would recommend to all of us?
Yes. Firstly, I would say, reading is really important. And there are a number of publications that I enjoy reading. OpenAI actually has some interesting publications that they provide. But use the technology. We have a protected version of ChatGPT we use internally, and I want to be clear, it's protected from an IP perspective. We have our own instance, but it's driving so much creativity. People are now coming up with ideas and things that they want to do. And then in terms of a book, yes, this is a book that has been recommended to me by multiple peers. It's called The New Automation Mindset, The Leadership Blueprint for the Era of AI for All by Vijay Tella. And the concept in the book is, as a leader in IT, how do you take this culture of automation and democratization of AI and drive it into your organization in a way that people are not fearful? But then as an individual in an organization, and this could apply both in technology, this could apply in a property management company, how do I embrace this notion of AI for all and make myself more valuable and leverage this technology in business? So I'm anxious to finish it. I've started in. So far, it has been wonderful. We may have to do a follow-up to talk about this book.
And you're lucky that we don't have a tradition here. So when the guest comes with a book, we keep it. So
I love
you're
that.
good to go for now. Well, Lance, I have a feeling that even if this episode lasted for 6 hours, it would still not be enough. It's clear that AI is not just a tool of the future, but rather a transformative force in our industry. And you have shared some incredible insights with us. Thank you so much. And I know RealPage is incredibly lucky to have you as our Chief Information Officer, and our industry benefits tremendously from your expertise. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Arben, for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Multifamily Talks, a RealPage podcast. As always, the views expressed are those of the individuals participating and not those of RealPage.